Hi everyone, I'm Eric.
And I'm Christopher.
And we're Grow For Me 5B. Today, we're going to be removing some annuals, transplanting some shrubs, and installing a hedge.
The fall planting season has begun.
So right here, heading into fall, is where the majority of our change is going to be taking place. We have quite a few annuals in here, and we have some shrubs that are not thriving for us. You'll see we have our bronze fennel, and it's covered with pollinators, and they're really happy right now. But unfortunately, we're going to have to cut their feast short today because we're going to be pulling some of these bronze fennel shrubs. But we'll be sure to put them back up on the burn somewhere where they can enjoy the blooms until they fully fade away. In front of that is our Supertunia Mini Vista Indigo Drift. That's going to get pulled today. And we have 3 Sesky Gold Birchleaf Spireas. They are not happy where they are right now. They've just been doing nothing but declining for us, so those we're going to pull and we're going to chuck.
As some of you might remember, we are going to be installing a hedge of hydrangeas in our front foundation bed, which means we'll be removing the 3 Eustacia Vye roses and the 5 spilled wine Weigelas. And what better place to put them than right here on our newly clean palette after we remove these annuals.
So I'm standing right here in a drift of 3 Eustacia Vye David Austin roses. And the original thought behind this was we would have billowing pink blooms coming up over the blue kazoo spirea in front of it. However, the blue kazoo spirea foliage and the Eustacia Vye foliage are almost identical. So really we lose that contrast right here. So we're going to take these out and replace them with some Invincibelle Spirit 2 hydrangeas and Invincibelle Ruby hydrangeas. And that hedge is going to go directly behind this entire first row of shrubs, which means we have to take out this one Fire Light Tidbit hydrangea, and we're going to take out these spilled wine hydrangeas, or spilled wine Weigelas. And we thought that these would be taller than the Fire Light Tidbits. Turns out they're not. Everything has pretty much turned out to be the same height, and we've been left with one height of shrub in the front with a little backing of evergreen peeking out. We are going to leave the wintergreen boxwoods here, or winter gem boxwoods here for winter interest, but this whole center channel right here is going to be replaced with 7 Invincibelle hydrangeas.
So the reason that we chose these particular hydrangeas, not just because we've fallen in love with the Annabelle style or arborescens hydrangeas, is because their growth habit is perfect. They top out at around 4 feet tall. Invincibelle Spirit 2 is 4 by 4 feet wide, and Ruby is 4 by 3 feet wide. So we'll get a little bit of a different form. The Invincibelle Spirit 2 is more of a blush pink. The Ruby gets a little bit of a darker pink, so we'll get some rich contrast that pops up over the Tidbit hydrangea and the double play blue kazoo.
And the foliage completely contrasts all the foliage in that front bed. So even though we're repeating hydrangeas, the hydrangeas bloom at a different time of year, and the foliage is a much darker green, much bolder foliage. And we are going to take a closer look at these hydrangeas as I prune them up and get them ready for planting. So when you go to the garden center this time of year, you may come across plants that are on sale because they've been at the garden center for the entire growing season. And that's kind of what we came about this time of year with our Invincibelle Spirit 2s and Invincibelle Rubies. So before we plant them, I'm just going to give them a little bit of a cleanup to get off anything that's really not happy or not looking pretty. I'm going to try and leave some of the faded blooms on top just because I happen to like them. But if there's anything that's a little bit wonky or a little bit broken or damaged, I'm going to cut it off. Again, Invincibelle Spirit 2s are hardy in zones 3 through 8. They bloom on new wood and they can handle full sun in their lower growing zones. And we're zone 5, so we're kind of right in the middle. And some people might say we're pushing it to put them in full sun, but our Invincibelle Wee Whites do really well in full sun. So I have a feeling that these will be okay as well. So the first thing I'm going to do, sometimes you'll notice you'll get some weeds that grow in the container. And on the top of the container, there may be broken branches, but there's also this sort of husk that they put down. Is it rice husk? Is that what it is?
Rice or corn?
Yeah, to help with water retention. But we'll remove that when it's time to plant it. just kind of look through. This one doesn't really look too bad.
It's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, there's branches with no growth on them that I can prune off. And the thing about Invincibelle Spirit 2 hydrangeas, because they bloom on new wood, even if they put out new growth, it doesn't need to be hardy for the winter because it's going to be chopped off anyway in the spring when I prune them back. So right now I'm just going through, neatening them up. I find this process very therapeutic. It's probably not super fun to watch, so I'm sure at some point Christopher will speed it up. I'm looking for anything that is dead, anything that's damaged, anything that's just not looking the best. But look at this, Christopher. This bloom is broken right here. It's broken above these 2 leaves, which is the perfect spot for it to have broken because I'll cut it here and then new growth will come from there. So that's a good spot for it to be broken. Any of these dead leaves are coming off.
Looks better already.
But yeah, I mean, this one didn't really need too much. This is broken right here, so I'll cut that off. Yeah, I mean, I'd say this one's good to go. So the Invincibelle Sphere 2s and the Invincibelle Rubies are all cleaned up. They're ready to go into the ground, but before we can do that, we have to remove all those other shrubs and transplant them to the back. So I think, Christopher, what you and I should do is get put on some working clothes and get our hands dirty.
So Eric got those hydrangeas ready to go into the foundation bed. I'm going to take a little time now to get the roses ready for transplant to that back bed. As you can see here, I've already done 2 of them. I apologize, gardeners. I know that this is difficult to look at this time of year. What I'm doing is I'm taking the roses down almost the same way I would for a spring pruning. I'm looking for those growth points that are kind of pointing out in the leaves, taking that new growth out. Yes, I'm about to sacrifice this beautiful flower. And then what I'm going to do is go through and defoliate the rose. This is going to serve the purpose of not only making it easier to transplant, but also it's going to let the rose put its energy into reestablishing roots and not trying to push more flowers.
Yeah, it won't have to support that foliage.
And then I find it's really easy to take the top of the stem, tug, 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 and then you're left with these defoliated branches that we can pull out of the ground and transplant in a safer way. Okay, so now all 3 are defoliated, cut back, and ready for transplant.
Let's get the shovel.
So now that we're defoliated, what we're going to do is start our digging process. I have planted these 3 roses incredibly deep. We like to have the roots quite far. I usually plan the hole to be about 18 inches deep. This keeps the crown of the plant nice and tucked underneath, not only to put out more roots, but it protects it in the winter when we have a really hard year. So I'm going to be out pretty far from the root ball and make my first digs.
And these were only planted last year, so I don't know if they'll be truly super established. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't think these are going to be too far in.
The soil's still loose around them.
Soil looks great too.
I know. I am casting a little shadow on the plant. So let me relocate to here. Be very gentle. It's looking good. Can you guys hear our neighbor mowing his lawn? Like clockwork, every Sunday afternoon. think maybe a little deeper. That.
I think I'm actually going to give this a lift.
Yeah, actually, and there's drip in there too. I forgot about. How you look, Eustacia? A lot of roots going on. Something. How's it doing? Oh, wow.
Here we are. Not terribly rooted out in its first year, but you can see this was planted really deep. Here's all the way down here where that bud union is. So we're going to repeat this process, and then less ceremoniously, we'll be pulling out the Weigela, which are more of a traditional shrub, and we can get them right out of the ground, as well as this Fire Light Tidbit.
So what we're doing with the Fire Light Tidbit, the extra one, is we're going to move it right here into this bed. We had some Violet Night, or Dark Night.
Violet Night.
Pulled that out. That was an annual. And it's got some pretty good roots on it. We're going to get it in the ground as quick as possible. I'm going to add some biotone starter fertilizer and lots of water. All right?
Here we go. Okay, so now that the hydrangea is in its place, tucked in nicely, I'm going to gather up these 2 pieces of drip tubing that had snapped earlier and reconnect them. I'm going to use this 1/2-inch black poly tubing and 2 couplers. Put it into this end.
And then once that's all connected,
wow, this
perfect size.
Perfect size.
Once that's all connected, then I'm going to put the hose on it to drip. So we've got the front bed cleared out. We have the Fire Light Tidbit already transplanted with a slow trickle of water on it right now. It is the heat of the day right now. Probably not the best time to do it, but this is when we have time to do it. We have 4 spilled wine Weigelas right here. These get about 3 by 3, and we have our Eustacia Vye. Looking at the area that we have left, we have our Winterberry, our Mr. Poppins, who gets 4 by 4. Our Sprinter Boxwood, which is probably going to get about 3 feet maximum. I'm thinking putting spilled wine here and then the other 3 kind of here and having this big space for Eustacia Vye. So why don't I place them? We'll see if we agree, and then we'll get them in the ground. We want to move quickly, but we want to make it a good decision. So I'm going to place that a little further forward so that that Sprinter has room to grow, and there's some miniature bee balm back there that we also want it to have some room. These spilled wines are starting to wilt. Instead of being spilled wine, they're wilt wine.
Wilt wine.
Wilt wine. Some people don't like to plant in groups of 4s. I like to plant in groups of 4s. It doesn't bother me. How do you feel about 4s, Christopher?
I'm all right with the 4. I think especially in this area, they're going to be a mass. They're not going to necessarily look like 4.
I mean, you know our planting style. It's full and lush. And then that gives us quite a chunk of room for Eustacia Vye. Do you think it's enough room for Eustacia Vye? Or do we need to dwindle it down to just 3 spilled wines?
I'm wondering if something might be better off where that tater tot is. Could we push one of the spilled wines closer to the tater tot area?
I don't think we can because we have Mr. Poppins right here.
Oh, that's true. What if I brought the edge out a little bit there?
Brought the edge out. And put it in front of Mr. Poppins?
Yeah.
Like we took this one right here?
If that went in front of Mr. Poppins.
Here.
Yep, so it's almost a diamond-shaped planting.
Yeah. And this one's here.
Yeah.
That gives Mr. Poppins room. And then that gives Eustacia Vye more room.
Yeah.
Do you want to try that?
I think we should try it.
And I don't even know if the edge has to come out today, but while we have the compost, we might want to try it. If we've got the energy.
We'll see how
we
it
got a
goes.
lot of digging to do.
A lot of digging to do.
All right, let's go. All right, so our other phone overheated and our microphones are charging. So the sound quality is probably very different, but this is my phone. And so Christopher's going ahead and planting Eustacia Vye. He's dug a very deep hole, filled it with water, added biotone, native soil mixed with a tiny bit of compost. But see how deep we bury? This one's already planted. We'll top dress with some more compost. All right, so we're still on my phone because the other one's inside charging, as are the microphones. So excuses for the sound, but here we go. Planting Eustacia Vye, the last one, very deep.
Very, very deep. I like to get all of this root situation pretty deep in the ground. It's about 8 inches from this really thick part here. I'm planting it all the way down deep. And this is so that when we get the strong west wind that's going to come through here, if all of these canes died back to the ground, tons of new growth can still come all the way from down here. And you can see where this was previously planted, this cane put out a ton of new roots, which further strengthens the plant.
Yep.
So I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to sprinkle a good amount of biotone, get this started out well in its new home. And then we'll fill the hole with some water and begin backfilling with a mixture of, let's say, 1/4 compost to 3/4 native soil.
As you can see, we have finished transplanting the 3 Eustacia Vye roses. We actually ended up moving this little tater tot arborvitae from over there to over here to make this drift of spilled wine Weigelas kind of fit and wrap around the Mr. Poppins winterberry. I think they're going to be very happy here. We just have to wait for them to perk up. You can see the first one that was transplanted in the back that got watered first is already starting to perk up. So I think they're well on their way. We'll keep this area very well watered, but we are heading into cooler temperatures, and they're going to be happy we moved them.
We now join the master at work as he begins placing the Invincibelle Spirit 2 and Invincibelle rubies in their new home.
So come on up here, Christopher. I want to show you where I placed everything. I went Invincibelle Spirit 2, Invincibelle Ruby, Invincibelle Spirit 2, Invincibelle Ruby. So we did a hedge of 7. They get about 3 to 4 feet wide each, but I wanted them to be super, super full, and that's why we did that total of 7, starting underneath the tricolor beech. They kind of weave a little bit. It's not a perfectly straight hedge. Let's get them in the ground. We'll add some biotone to the holes, plant them up and water them in, and then we're done for the day. Phew. All right, so it is the end of a very long day. What I'm doing here is I am just watering in the Invincibelle Spirit 2s and the Invincibelle Rubies. We got them all placed. We're biotone in the hole. Christopher, I pushed mulch aside, well, compost aside. Christopher dug the hole. I would put the plant in, put native soil and top dress with compost. We also laid some drip down, but we kind of rearranged it from where it already was. And now I'm just watering them in. So I'm going to give them their first little drizzle of water now, and then I'll go back over. And I think they're going to be very happy here. Wow. So we worked hard today. We are filthy and sweaty, and we're so happy you came along for the journey. I think it was well worth it. It's going to be beautiful. Right behind us, actually, are some Invincibelle Spirit 2s. That's what's going to be in front when they get established. So again, I'm Eric.
And I'm Christopher.
And we're Grow From E5B.
Thanks for growing with us.
Now let's go pass out.
I had to jump on really quick and show you guys. 2 days after we did the initial planting, and a couple days of rain, spilled wine Weigelas are perked back up, looking healthy and happy. This last one's a little tired still, but that was a successful transplant.